Go ahead then and we'll get started. This is our recess meeting and also our budget hearing for the 2021 budget. So we're going to go ahead and open this meeting with a prayer. I'm going to ask if Supervisor Williams, he would open us up with a prayer.
Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, we come before you this morning with thanks and gratitude in our heart for what you mean to us. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for the opportunity to serve the people of Octavia County. We pray that as a result of our service that Octavia County be a better place to work, to live, and to raise a family. We pray, oh Father, for each one of these board members, give them the understanding and we might be able to serve well. This is our prayer. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Supervisor Williams. All right, moving right along, this is our citizens' comment period where any citizen can come before the board for up to 3 minutes and address the board with whatever concern they may have. Seeing that there are none, we'll move right along to the budget hearing. Miss Gary.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You go ahead. On page 1, this is the condensed budget that we have to keep prepared or publish before the end of the month, once the board approves. On page 2, we have our notice for our hearing, and we will have a millage increase, which is 2 different notices that we have to use. One is we're going to have a millage increase, and the other one is if we're not, but we are this year, so that one shows.
But due to what?
Due to the school.
Back to the school, correct.
Okay.
No, we didn't put any millage on.
Our millage for the county stays the same. And we're going to get over to that going into the budget. On page 3, it is the general fund budget. That's where all of our court systems are funded. Any grant allocations that we give are funded. Our administrative offices are funded. And our general county budget did increase this year, $587,287. But that don't let that scare y'all, because our meals, with the growth of the meal, it increased by $532,932. So most of that will come from the growth of the meal. Page 4 is organizations and other departments that we give allocations, subsidies, or grants to. This year we're given $955,997, which is an increase of last year of $17,880. And that is mainly to the library and to the Humane Society. Over on page 5, these are all of our other funds that are outside the general fund. And that consists of most everything that we do here. Our other funds decreased from last fiscal year by $5,221,462. And the reason for that is I credit that to the fact that we are continuing to turn bond proceeds into capital assets. Although we don't have the cash, we've got the capital assets to show for it. Improvements on Blackjack Road, Longview Road, and other roads, and with the industrial park. On page 6, you have your general county funds on your left side, and your special revenue funds on your right side, showing a combined budget this fiscal year of $44,510,670, which is a 9.43% decrease from last year. Page Page 7 is the check sheet, there's a check page. We plug in our assessed valuations at the top and run through the spreadsheet and it double checks our manual figures on what the value of the mill would be and how much it's gonna take in revenues to fund the budgets. And over down to the right-hand side, you got your total county levies is at 58.49, and the school levies at 65.11 for the total of the 123.60. Page 8 is showing what our assessed valuation was last year as compared to this year, and it shows that we had $14,499,286 in new growth. We also had some county exempt properties that came off that we're getting to account for this year, but it didn't. So it made our new growth look a little different from the Scoops. Because it wasn't new growth to them, they were already getting advantage of it. On the bottom part of that page, it's broke down by real property and personal property and by districts. I think last year, District 4 had the most new growth. This year, District 3 is carrying it. And I look back and I think last year and this year, District 5 is carrying the largest new growth in the county for real property.
Those developments
Mm-hmm.
went out top,
Mm-hmm. So that's interesting to see how that's changing and flopping around. On page 9, this is where we get to the millage. General county mill this year is going to be worth $418,389, which is a $18,442 increase in the value of the mill from last year. The volunteer fire mill is going to be $156,100, and that's an increase of $7,312 per mill from last year. The school millage is $422,410, which is an increase of $17,991 over last year's mill. And the increase in the millage rate, that is due to assessed valuation growth. It's not due to the more millage put on. But there on page 9, it shows that our total mills is going to be 123.60 this year, where it was 123.57 last year. And the .03 that we have discussed in here goes to the schools. It does not go to the county. The county millage stayed the same at 58.49 mils. Page 10 shows if you live in the city, you'll be paying the county 120.20 mils. If you're a county resident and do not live in the city, it's going to be 103.60 mils. And the difference between the two is volunteer fire millage. Also, the town of Maven and Sturgis do not pay volunteer fire millage. They pay the millage for their fire protection from their communities. Page 11. Page 11 shows the proposed mills this year as compared to the previous year mills and the amount of proposed dollars that we will collect as compared to the amount of proposed dollars we collected in the current fiscal year. For county purposes, we're going to should collect $18 million. Last year we collected $17,533. We give to EMCC and And the hospital, we'll be giving them 1.3 million this year, where we gave them 1.1 million last year. And then debt service, we've got 3,656,000 debt service this year as compared to 3,563,000 last year. Of that debt service, 1.9 million is for county purposes and 1.6 million is for hospital purposes. On down in the last part, the total school purchases, they will be raising millage to amount to $27,503,000 this year, where they were at $26,295,000 last year.
Miss Emily, I don't mean to interrupt, but I do know when it was a city and a school district, the city school had maxed out their meal bondage, etc. What is their max millage that they can have?
The max millage that they can have for operating purposes is 55 mils, and they're at 54.12.
But there can be an exception for bonds. Okay?
Bonds is
Right.
outside of that,
Right.
whether debt service is outside of that,
Right.
whatever it takes to make the debt service payment, you can put the millage on to make the debt service payment. And I think on their school, on their maintenance, they're limited to, they can't go over 4% from the year before. Now, the meal science meal, that's capped at 1 meal. Their limited tax note, they can go up to 3 meals on that. And whatever their limited tax notes are, they're getting that paid off, so that's coming down, and they are shifting that millage different over to cover their school bond meals. The piece of pie, the pie that's on page 12, as that shows y'all, the school gets the biggest percent of the millage. And then the general county and the road fund and the other parts fall in there. Then after page 12, this is the budget that was submitted by the schools. This is their part of it. We're fortunate to still see growth, but we don't know how the COVID is gonna affect assessed valuation collection, so we have to be careful in how we stand here and get that under, see exactly where we're gonna go from there. That's all I have. There's any questions?
Thank you for doing it. The way you lay it out, it's so easy for people to understand. And I think the pie chart really shows the overall of everything, and then when people understand what the meal value is, they can take that and multiply by how many meals go in, and they understand where the county and where their taxes are going, so.
Yeah. Now, when you're doing general county, they don't work exactly to take that millage and multiply it out to get that, because I have to take into consideration
That millage
homestead
difference.
exemption and
Right.
homestead reimbursement, so there's like a $200,000 difference on that.
Right.
And I guess it's good to note that although it shows the school district has the biggest portion of the millage, that their meal doesn't value as much as.
No, their meal values more than ours.
There's no exemptions.
General.
Yeah.
After, when did that start taking place?
Their meal,
It values much as a
their
county.
meal, that's when we were county schools, their meal was lower
Okay,
than ours.
so when the consolidation
When they
happened.
consolidated, their meal is the same as ours, except where we get it, we have, when we exempt properties, we don't collect on that millage, but they do. So for our.
Right, I know,
yeah.
if we give a business or something an exemption,
Yeah.
we can't exempt the
Yeah.
school tax.
That's right.
Okay, well, that's good
Yeah.
to know.
That's
I was still under the assumption.
Yeah, no, their mill's worth $422,000 and ours is $418,000.
Okay.
Any questions?
You must have a lot of help to put
I'll
all
make the
this
motion to
together.
approve.
We need a motion and a second to approve the budget if there are no more questions. So we got a motion by Supervisor Miller, second by Supervisor Williams. Any more discussion on the matter? Not all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
And I would just like to piggyback off what Supervisor Williams said, thank Ms. Emily and all her staff for working through
You
this.
must have a lot of help to put something like this together.
So appreciate it.
Fund millage, how much on millage?
Set the millage at 1.360.
Motion by Supervisor Miller, second by Supervisor Howard. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. 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 Motion carries.
Y'all had requested that I put through a 3% cost of living into the budget, which is included in the budget, so I need an order for that.
Motion by Supervisor Miller, second by Supervisor Williams. Any discussion on that? If not, all those in favor?
This is all county employees get a 3% increase.
Motion carries unanimous.
And the last thing, I need an order to publish this crime page right here.
Motion by Supervisor Williams, second by Supervisor Howard, to publish the budget.
The condensed budget.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much
Thank you,
for
Ms.
approving
Evans.
that. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Well, I guess that concludes our budget, and yet again, we've had another good year in Oklahoma County as far as increasing the value of, our tax base and also, the valuation of land. So we hope that assessed value stays strong. Moving along, we'll start with Oklahoma County Humane Society, Ms. Aikens, Ms. Anderson, and Mr. Welp. You want to move forward?
Morning. I was going to be a spokesperson for the shelter.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming today. This is pertaining to a gentleman that came last week, and I don't see him here today. About the situation with the dog that attacked, most goats and rabbits, things like that. So I guess enlighten us on the other side of the story.
Okay.
We'll be glad to hear.
We weren't here last time, so what information I have gathered, I think there have been some misleading communications about that, including kind of the premise that you introduced this with the dog that attacked the goats and rabbits and all. I put together a packet for each of you about what some of the information that's going on here. Each of these are the same.
Let me out here, Marty.
Alright.
What we got?
So the first page is just a cover sheet.
I got you.
And so I didn't want to have, the first few pictures are pictures of the dog that was shot, and they're fairly graphic, but I think they're important to kind of illustrate what's going on, or what we are dealing with here. The premise that I think everything's been based on is that this dog was going around attacking goats and rabbits and things, which is obviously what y'all were told. However, the sheriff's office did an investigation. The Simmonses, I'm not sure if it's there's Cecil and then his son. I'm not sure which one. Their names are kind of synonymous. I'm not sure which one's actually doing the things or went and shot them. But the investigative reports are on there. And if you look back towards the last one, that is the most comprehensive report. And that was done by Brandon Griggs. And he kind of put everything together to try and figure out what actually was going on. Because there were some contradictions from when Mr. Simmons came and made his reports. Originally he said that he had, or in one of the reports, and I think what he told you guys, was he came out there, saw the dog attacking his goats, and then shot it. And so there were some contradictions in his statement, so Sergeant Griggs went back to confirm what's actually going on, and talked to him and made it clear that he did not actually see this dog attack any of his animals. He has game camera footage of the dog being on the property or being in the area, and on the day when he shot the dog, he came out to his pasture, and this is in his statement. He came out to his pasture and he saw a different dog that he called a a Walker hound that was standing over a dead goat. So, seeing that, he went back inside to get his gun to come out and shoot the Walker hound that evidently was attacking his goats. Walker hound was gone. This dog was there, so he shot it instead. So that's what actually happened in this whole scenario. He didn't come out and catch a dog attacking his goats and then be a helpless farmer and have to do what he could. He just saw another dog there and he was mad because something's been attacking his goats. And he does have our sympathy about the goat attacks. Our mission is to protect animals, which would include goats, and the dogs and cats. And every year, I think we had previously sent you in our budget request some of the numbers about the animals that we've cared for and taken in from the county. We take in about 1,100 something in the last year. I think we took in 1,154 animals or something from out of the county, not counting the city animals. And of these, every animal that we take in, we evaluate them, we make sure they're medically sound, and try and get them shots, clean them up, whatever they need. And we spend a lot of effort and time and resources making sure that the animals are healthy. And as part of that, we do evaluate them. And I think someone had suggested at one point that we are a no-kill shelter, but that's not quite accurate. What we are is a shelter that does the best we can to promote the health and welfare of all the animals in our care. That's our mission, and to protect the community. So when this animal came in, then Mr. Simmons came up to the shelter and was demanding the animal. He wanted to kill it. That is not anything that we are ever going to allow. We are not going to turn over any animals in our care to any citizen to carry out a vendetta against the animal. Animals are animals, they have problems, they get in fights, they do whatever. We evaluate them. We have experts in our shelter that deal with the animals, that treat them, and evaluate them, and then we decide what can happen with them. If this animal has an issue, can it be rehabilitated, and is it adoptable? And the main reason that we do euthanize animals is if they are not adoptable, if they are actually vicious. And we can tell because we're dealing with them. Now, the only time Mr. Simmons saw this dog was on game cameras, when the dog was just wandering around, no evidence of him doing anything, and when he shot it. We spent a lot of time with the dog. The dog was in the care of a vet for a long time. Every human that interacted with this dog was absolutely convinced that it was not a vicious dog. This was a very sweet dog. It's a big dog. It got along great with all the humans it interacted with. It got along great with all the animals it interacted with. This dog actually, a strange thing that's not supposed to happen, but he ended up in another dog's kennel at one point. Vicious dog in another dog's kennel is going to have a problem. He was just hanging out like everybody's. He's just a sweet dog. He got shot in the face. And part of the question I think that brought us here today is, what can we do, or is there anything else we need to do to protect farmers? And we're all for protecting farmers, and that's part of what we do. That's why we bring in problem dogs. That's why, part of why we exist, so we can take them out of that circulation, see what needs to happen with them, see what protections can be there. And that's what is there, and that's what exists to protect farmers, and to protect the animals, and to protect the community. Is if there's a problem, if he's had his goats attacked for the last year or whatever, then he can contact us. He can contact the sheriff's office. He can contact animal control. That's kind of what we do. That's where the intervention comes in. The intervention doesn't come in from saying, okay, if you see a stray dog out there, you can shoot it. That's not appropriate. We can take it in. This dog was an innocent dog that got shot in the face. And once we got it, then we could evaluate that and determine if that was the case. But he could not when he came out and saw it. And naturally he's mad. That's one of the things. But part of what we're here for, there's an awful lot of stray dogs in the community. And Maven, even just from looking through some of the investigation that was going on here. And, I mean, I know all y'all spend a lot of time out in the county. There's stray dogs everywhere, there's yard dogs everywhere, and that's part of what we're trying to fix, is to get the dogs in, get them fixed, so there's less puppies running around, to turn into stray dogs, because it's not healthy for the dogs, it's not healthy for the community. But the vigilante aspect of this plan is absolutely unacceptable. This is what we do. We do have a procedure in place to take care of the animals. And so that's, I think, where some of the mischaracterizations in this come from. So we would like to be able to service all the animals. Instead, we service over 1,100 in the last year from the county. And this is one of them. So, I don't know if there's any, and again, I wasn't here last time, so this is kind of what I'm surmised from, you know, what I've heard or seen in the press and that kind of thing. So if there's any specific questions or anything along that.
I guess specifically is, let's just look at this and say we knew 100% this dog. But look at a totally different scenario, but it's one just like this. Say that dog, you knew, everyone knew that was the dog that did the killing, etc. Okay, of the goats, rabbits. I think he put in this report. At that point, would that dog be evaluated? It's unsafe. You don't want to have to put any animal down. But would that animal be put down if it were deemed the one that killed livestock?
That would be,
say you knew.
right, if
For
we knew
instance,
this
it killed
animal.
my animals, my pet, whatever.
Well, I think it goes,
Would you put that dog down?
well, the only answer I can give you now is maybe, and it's a hypothetical, but, so that would be part of the criteria that we'd be looking at, if we knew that. But also, what is critical to keep in mind about with animals, same as humans, they go out and do stupid stuff, and inappropriate stuff, but that does not necessarily mean that they are not redeemable. So the same goes with animals. If we knew this dog was a stray dog that was out there and killed some goats, then we would be very concerned about it. We would absolutely take it in and isolate it, treat it, evaluate it, through essentially the same procedures that we do with every other animal that comes in. Pretty much every time we get a call, it's because there's some issue going on. But if the dog, and actually even on this case, and one of Mr. Simmons' reports that I handed out, he said he didn't want that dog back on his property. Perfectly reasonable. And that's part of what we do. Just make sure the dog's not back on his property causing any more problems. So if this animal can be assessed, evaluated, and is, we deem him not to be a threat, then there's no reason not to adopt him back out.
Even if they're, let's just say you caught him in the act. I walk out on my front porch, I have a little 4-pound chihuahua. He kills her right in front of me.
Then that would likely, it would make it more likely that that dog would not be rehabilitatable. And that would lend towards euthanasia. But I can't tell you on any one act that a dog does without knowing about extenuating circumstances or what else is going on, that's what we would do. I think it would be very likely that that dog would not be able to go back into circulation. It would not be adoptable. But just on any hypothetical, I can't tell you 100% what's going to happen until we know everything about it. It's just not appropriate. You can't. I mean, that's jumping the gun. So, well, here's the criteria for a dog, so then we're going to kill it. But certainly, if you see the dog on the porch and you see it attacking your dog, you can shoot it. I mean, there's no question about that. But once the dogs are separated and it is secured, then that's when it can go through the analysis of whether this is a vicious dog, whether this is a dog that can be redeemed. And in your scenario, I think that's unlikely that it would be redeemed.
I would say 100% unlikely. And I appreciate your answer, but that's where, in my opinion, maybe the ordinance needs some more teeth.
Well, you run into a problem.
If a dog does something like that, an animal does something to either another animal, human, if they're deemed as vicious, then
Well, I think that would likely come, but it's impossible for us to say now, on any kind of, even in criminal law or any kind of personal law, when you try and do something that's 100%, if you fit this, there's a lot of premises that are faulty on the way. Even just on, if we just use this as an example. Last week, you guys were 100% that this dog was seen attacking goats. This dog doesn't have any witnesses with it. So, if they hadn't put in the accuracies to Sergeant Briggs that they actually didn't see it, this would be 100%.
I'm not talking about the question of whether he did or didn't. I'm saying this dog, this animal, did something 100%. In the event thereof, what would the outcome be? And I think that's on our part. Maybe we need to look at the dog ordinance, the vicious dog ordinance, vicious animal ordinance a little closer, you know, to make it a little more black and white.
Well, you've got to be careful trying to make something black and white on that. When you run into mandatories, it never works out well. The only reasonable way to do it is to have it evaluated by professionals that can evaluate the animal. And that would be a criteria, but if that's a criteria that makes it 100%, if this dog is seen attacking a smaller dog, then you have to put it down. That may not be appropriate because there are a lot of factors, especially when you get into animal kingdom interactions. Alright? And in that case, I don't know of a situation that anything can be proved 100%. It's kind of a academic fallacy. It can't happen, right? So the 100% that you're talking about is really just witness perception and credibility.
But you can't disprove it either.
No, you can't. That's why you have to evaluate the animal on a case-by-case basis. So the scenario that you're considering is that you are the one that is the witness that comes out and sees this random stray dog attack your dog.
I'm not talking about who the witness is. I'm talking about if, under whatever scenario, it's proven. If the sheriff officer saw it in their report, be it witnesses, be it whatever.
Right.
This dog is vicious to the point that it kills or bites, even bites a child. And I know what you're talking about. A child sometimes does provoke an animal. But if they're considered vicious, and have been vicious, proven vicious, then I think that's
Then
where
that-
the ordinance may need to
then
have a little closer look.
But that makes it, as it is now, that still makes it very likely that that would happen. If those criteria are met, then yes, that dog is not going to be redeemable and it will be euthanized. But the only way to determine that is by evaluating the actual animal. Because there are always going to be issues that come in. Small dogs, I grew up with small dogs, they're crazy. They attack big dogs. And that, for the provocation part in that statute, is there for a reason. Because dogs are going to react, depending on how you do it. Now, I think if you want to do something to try and curtail some of this, it's not making some kind of mandatory death sentence for animals that get into these interactions, but something along the lines of let's try and have fewer wild animals running around. Let's try not to have
responsible ownership.
Right. Let's try not to have so many yard dogs running around. Let's be more active about picking up yard dogs. Let's pass some kind of roaming at large ordinance. If that's what you want to do to stop this kind of thing, that's the direction to go. Pick up the animals, enforce some kind of owner responsibility for the animals, and the strays, bring them to us, and then we can make them not strays anymore. That's how you solve the problem. It's not by going around killing the animals that get in the interaction. That's just that happens.
I guess I've got a question, and I know we're talking big picture type scenarios here, but I want to sort of come back to this one particular incident. And I do understand what you're saying, based on the reports that was, he didn't actually see the German Shepherd with the goat in his mouth. But we do know there's a bunch of dead goats and rabbits, and the dog was on the property. That being said, I guess what I'm asking is, what you were saying is, if this, you all make a determination whether these, and I'm going to speak to this one particular animal, whether this particular dog is able to be rehabilitated or
Mhm.
not. And you base that on, I guess, a controlled environment. With you interacting with the dog in the kennel, watching the dog, observing the dog with other dogs that's happy. But then, can you truly say, when this dog is out roaming with another dog, that then he doesn't become a different dog? Which sort of, there's enough evidence around this dog. I mean, if I just had to make a decision, I would probably say he was probably involved in some way with that. So I guess I'm asking, because you said readopt this dog out based on your controlled environment. Is that where you draw that conclusion?
Well, I think the part you might be presupposing is that these aren't like humans that we let them out of jail when they're done with their sins. We just put them back out where we found them. Once the dog comes in and we evaluate it, and if we determine that this dog is adoptable, then that's going to go through our adoption contracts, and the idea is for the dog not to be an at-large dog anymore. And part of our adoption contracts covers that. If you adopt this dog, you are responsible for maintaining control of the dog. We ask questions about your house, your fence, your plan for controlling the dog, so it's not an at-large dog. Our mission is to eliminate the at-large dog problems. This dog is no longer an at-large dog, because this is actually a success story of what we have in place now. And if we had more resources and we could get out to the public that they and the farmers, that if they have these problems, as soon as you see a dog start killing goats or running around on your pasture and you're concerned about him killing the goats, then let us know. Call animal control, call the sheriff's office, call us, and then we can take that dog out of circulation. So that's the thing. Yes, I would not be able to tell. I mean, a big hungry stray dog is going to eat. And
I understand all that. I was just basically, you said that you would readopt the dog out, and I was wondering, based on the controlled environment that you observe the dog in, is what you base on this animal is eligible to be readopted.
right.
Okay.
But the readoption is very different than a release. This dog ain't back in Maiden. This dog is going to be adopted by a home that is deemed responsible through these criteria. So that solves the problem.
Right.
You know, if we can deal with the at-large animal problem, that's where we deal with it.
But I just wanted to make sure that we didn't ship a problem from Maven to Arkansas somewhere.
No.
So let me ask you this, let's say a dog is considered, had a past, whatever, with another dog, an animal. When that dog is, say it is rehabilitatable, and it's sent to wherever, Arkansas, does that owner that gets that dog, do they have knowledge of this dog's history, kind of what you're taking in as the package?
I believe so. Certainly if any dog has any history, then that would go with it. It'd be along with the vet records, behavior records, that kind of thing, would go with it, because adopters need to know.
That way they can understand.
Right, it's like a special
What
needs
they're
dog.
signing, for.
Right.
And I wish the gentleman were here, but he's not, but, I appreciate you giving, this side of the story. Does anyone else have anything to ask or add?
I just listen. Great, absolutely great service that the Humane Society offers, and it goes a long way in helping control stray animals. I just appreciate what you all do, and really appreciate you coming up and enlightening us on the rest of the service.
Well, thank you. And thank you all for your time, and Yeah, trying if there's anything else, you can get up with them.
I did have one more thing. So, let's say I live in the outer skirts of the county, and I call the Humane Society, and I have a Rottweiler that's roaming, no collar, you know, he growled at me, whatever. I called the sheriff, he came and taken a report. But I know as a supervisor, I call animal control, and they don't come until they get a call from the sheriff's department. If I'm that citizen, do I call the sheriff? I know first. But if I call the Humane Society, can you dispatch someone to go get that dog? So that's where sometimes.
Right, and that's a problem. And frankly, it comes down to, like I was saying about resources. We need more resources. Animal control is for the city. We don't have an animal control for the county. So jurisdictionally, they can't go out there without the sheriff's jurisdiction, basically, right? And so they would have to be co-opted into that. If we had a separate unit through the sheriff's office, then that would be great. We could do that. We could have animal control officers through the sheriff's office. Then that would be who gets dispatched. But that's not the shelter. We can't just go and do it.
But you can ask sheriff's officers, et cetera, to round the dog up. Or even, I know the city has sent, you know, in times they have sent their dog catcher out to the county.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out at the current moment, you know, when a problem happens this second, you know, who's to be dispatched. Because they won't listen to me as a supervisor, I know. And, I mean, they're just following their orders.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think the procedure, I think the sheriff would have to speak to the procedures as to how to go through the sheriff's office, but that would be their jurisdiction to do that. And so, if there's an animal control unit through them, then that would be great, and that would be able to accomplish that. But right now, there's not one, and it's taxing when the city's paying for the city animal control, and then they have to expend those resources in the county. They've got enough chasing in the city, so we need expansion, basically. So these things can get headed off on the front end.
Could you all just quickly go over process? Somebody find a little puppies or a stray dog, fees, and everything if they bring them to the Humane Society?
As far as we just collect them and bring them in. Then we do an intake, we separate the animals, we evaluate them, and make sure that we're not, you know, animals are the same as humans. They're coming in off the street with who knows what, and there's a lot of communicable diseases between animals. So we run through a separate entrance, so then they're over here getting evaluated as new. That way they're not in contact with the healthy animals that we've already done that kind of quarantine period with, until they can get to a vet and get them checked out and that kind of thing, and then they kind of shift over to adoptable, and this whole time we're doing the evaluation process.
Is there a fee?
For a drop off?
Yeah.
Not in the
county.
No.
Not from the county. Our goal is to get the dogs off the street. So.
And we also offer, if it's somebody's pet, that they have, like a mama dog, we do also offer, low-cost spay and neuters to get that mother dog fixed or the father neutered so there's not any more puppies.
You all accept gifts of dog feed and stuff
Yes.
like that?
Donations, yes, sir.
anything else from anyone?
Well, yes, thank you all for your service.
Thank you.
To our counties. Is it part of your responsibility to search for the owner of an animal that is brought in such a situation and try to have that owner to make some kind of amends to the person who had other animals that were killed? Because I think those ghosts have value too.
Yes.
And their life has value. Not only that he seemed to think a lot of his animals too, as well as you think a lot of that particular German Shepherd.
Sure.
So somebody, it seems like we should be searching for the owner of that animal, and that owner should be held responsible,
Absolutely.
for the damage that has been done. Will
Absolutely.
you make any attempts to do that? And I have another question too after that one.
The main thing we do when any stray is brought in, I mean, regardless of the circumstances, I mean, we hold them for a period while we're doing evaluations, and we hold ourselves out as a contact. So if your dog's missing, then you know that's somewhere to come look for it, right? Because without us, basically, then it's, you know, a stray dog that the neighbor a mile away has in her carport, you know. And so we're kind of a hub for that, for the people to come to us. We don't have the resources to initiate an investigation and go door to door, say, hey, is this your dog? Or that kind of thing. And if there's something that needs to be followed up, then again, the law enforcement community could do that, investigations on that, to see if one can be found. And on this case, I think an investigation was done to try and find the owner, but unfortunately there's an awful lot of just stray dogs without owners. Or the owner just won't show up. But we'll check them for microchips. You know, we'll do all the things that we can, that if the dog had been properly cared for and, you know, was microchipped and all these things that we routinely do before we adopt them back out, then we would be able to track them down that way. But it'd be impossible to do it door to door. But there is recourse, absolutely, for the owners of the fallen animals, of the goats. And it's just across the street. You know, you file a suit. Once the owner is determined who it is, then they're going to be responsible for the damages to the animals. And so it's just a matter of suing in court. But there's obviously nobody to sue for a stray, which I don't want to freak y'all out, but the ball's going to roll down to the county. In the end, we're going to have a responsibility for dealing with stray animals, which I don't think it's quite there, but when there's no owner and
I think if we try to investigate some, we probably could find out who the owner of the dog is if we're doing an investigation. But my next question too is that should there be any consideration done to the fact that that particular dog was on someone else's property and those animals were killed on that property, and that animal was in that vicinity when it happened, and nothing else, that animal liked to be around that type of, if he didn't do it, he liked to be around that type of company.
he's running around with a bad crowd.
Yeah, that's just as bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that can get you in just as much trouble
It can.
as it can if he actually did it.
Yeah, no, people, places, and things is a real thing, even for dogs.
And that's the thing about it. If that dog wasn't a part of that particular activity and didn't like that kind of activity, he should have taken himself out of the presence of what was going on
Sure.
on there.
Sure.
So apparently that dog was somewhat involved.
It's definitely suspicious what he's doing there. Same as anybody hanging out behind the gas station. It's suspicious, but that's something that we take into account on this. We don't have to prove, like in our evaluation, whether that dog was running around with bad dogs and doing bad things or killing the goats. Even with the evidence that we had here, which there's no evidence that he actually hurt these animals, we still do the evaluation to determine whether he's a vicious dog. So regardless of whether he actually attacked anything, we're still gonna, I mean, we have lots of animals come in, they're like, oh, even owner surrenders, oh, this dog's perfectly nice, always been great. Okay, great. Comes in and just starts fighting people, so we euthanize him. So it's not, that's part of the evaluation process. But, you know.
But he was out of place, right?
He was out of
The dog
place.
was out of place, and the dog was around another vicious dog.
And that is where, what I was saying about, it's the at-large animals. That's the population we need to do something about. Because there are an awful lot of them just wandering around, and we need to get them off the streets. That's how we stop this from happening.
So what about the walking hound that actually was seen with the goat in the mouth? Is that one still out running around?
I kind of assume they already shot it. But we haven't seen the dog. If it comes in, we'll do the evaluation. And if, you know, it is doing what we think it's been doing, then it's not likely to be adoptable. But we have to get it and look at it and go through the process.
Would you agree that maybe there's a step missing from the time a dog is reported vicious and from that time to the dog gets to you? It seems like a step is missing as to whether or not a decision should be decided before the dog even get to you. Whether or not the dog is vicious or not, it doesn't need to be roaming around any longer.
Well, your question then is gonna be who's making that decision?
Yeah, who's making the decision?
Do we want Mr. Simmons doing it, or do we want our animal control experts doing it?
That's what I'm saying, that there's a step missing, it seems.
Well, and to fill that step would be, I think what you're really talking about is having a countywide, animal control system. So when that call comes in, then that animal can immediately be taken off the street and in for evaluation.
Well, we don't need to know what needs to be done, but something needs to be done.
Right, but that's
Before
what,
we get to you, something needs to be done.
it just needs to get to me.
Yeah.
Just get it to me and we'll figure it out.
Anything else for?
Sheriff, that's all.
Well, Judge, you might want to explain to him on this vicious dog ordinance. If we go out and deal with a dog that we think's vicious, and then we do the seizure papers, it goes to a judge. If the judge deems the dog, then we seize the dog, and then we have a hearing. You might want.
Yeah, sorry, that actually went back to your question, and I have to get back to that, thanks, Sheriff. So part of it, when law enforcement is out there, they have the reports that there's a dog being vicious and acting up, then they will do the seizure. They can take it into custody, and then there's a 5-day notice statute under state law that post it wherever the dog was. If you know the owner, then you give the notice to the owner, just like any other lawsuit. If the dog's just wandering around, you know, we put notices on fences, you know, just wherever the dog's found, to try and put notice out that, hey, this dog has been apprehended, there's reports of it doing whatever, and it's at the shelter. If you want to contest this, then, you know, you have 5 days to contest it. And then it goes through the court process, and then, you know, we'll determine. So that procedure is there. It's just a matter of getting the dogs off the street.
I think the other thing that wasn't clarified in the first thing was that y'all had not been notified prior. You know, when we heard the story, to me it sounded like that y'all had been involved from the beginning in some way.
Yeah, no, there was all the backstory that he talks about here from the last year or 6 months or whatever of, you know, hundreds of goats. He never reported it to anybody. The sheriff's records, there's nothing there. He never asked for help, or this could have been avoided. But he did nothing. We didn't know anything about it until March when we got the dog that had been shot in the face. So, yeah.
We got the dog in on the 21st, and he, the Lamar, contacted us on the 24th.
The gentleman contacted you on the 24th?
Yes.
Yeah. And came to the shelter and he now has a no trespass warning at the shelter. Just demanding the dogs and being very inappropriate with the staff about it because we're not going to release a dog to kill. But that's kind of separate from the issue.
Do you have any plans to keep the county involved into the status of that particular dog?
No.
You don't have any plans for that?
No, we just follow the procedures, and I mean, the dog's ready to be out.
Generally, you wouldn't tell us whether or not he's been transported out, or he is rehabilitated or not, whether or not he's been rehabilitated, possible being rehabilitated, in general terms, maybe nothing specific, but
I don't mind telling you personally what's going on with him, but generally, as a procedure, no, we're not going to follow up. I mean, like I said, we bring in over 1,100 dogs and cats and animals from the county every year. So, I mean, we're not going to have a general policy of telling you everything that happens with every one of them.
with this one.
With this one, if you're really curious, I'd be glad to tell you. But also, there's basically a bounty out for this dog. So this one is more confidential than the rest of them. I mean, we have a lot of confidentiality rules anyway regarding the adoptions. But with this one also, there are a lot of people that have been involved in it that are specifically asked not to be named because of the fear of retribution from those that want to kill the dog. And I'm certainly not going to release any information that's going to end up with Mr. Simmons banging on somebody's door trying to get their dog. I'd sure be mad.
Anything else? Thank you for coming, Judge Martin.
Thank you
Thank
all
y'all.
so much.
Like I said, if y'all have any other questions, or even if it's informal things, y'all know how to get up with me, and I'll be glad to. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good. All right. Moving right along. Tom Bigby River Valley Water Management District, Mr. Kenny.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good
morning.
How are you?
Great.
Thank you, thank you. Emily said, throwing at me, she said y'all had some questions. Y'all had questions about a couple of projects. I wanted to come by and.
I guess the first thing to clear up
Yes, sir.
is this. It's sort of saying this to get a project done in Octavia County, sort of is gonna take years. Is that?
That would not be a true statement.
Okay.
It depends,
I just wanted to get
it
that
depends on the
one
size,
cleared
it
up
depends on
from-
the size of the project. Let me back up and say, it'll depend on the size of the project. I've got projects on the books right now up there that go back, for some of these counties, that go back 5 or 6 years. But the reason they go back 5 or 6 years is the county cannot get all the paperwork done. It's not because we're not willing to do the work, it's because they have easements that they have 1 or 2 people that may not want to sell it. They may not agree that we're gonna come in and pile material on their place. They don't want it. They want it hauled off, or they want something else done with it, and we don't do that. So the project just stops. So, and the board of supervisors, I go back to them periodically with a list and ask them to rescind those projects that are that old. And sometimes they do, sometimes they won't. They think they can talk that person into changing their mind. That's kind of if there's a perception of how long it takes, that would be the worst case, I guess you would say, is that they get hung up with the paperwork.
But in general, if everything is in place and in order, and generally, it's not gonna take 2 or 3 years.
No, sir. It doesn't. It doesn't. Matter of fact, it may change tomorrow, it may change today. The county may all of a sudden decide to start, getting their paperwork in all the time. We've got one county that we do a ton of work with, and they have the majority of the watershed coming through that county, that's Itawamba. But when Itawamba puts a resolution through, when our board approves it and we send the paperwork back to them, I will just about guarantee you in 2 weeks, I've got every bit of their paperwork back. All their easements have been done, they've gotten all the easements, their attorney has done his work and his due diligence. All that stuff comes back to us and it's put in the hopper to get done. And that's the reason they get probably number of projects wise, that's the reason they get more projects done than any other county we've got, is because they do their paperwork and they get their paperwork back in and we're able to schedule them. And a lot of times it's weather related too. I mean, we're always looking for high ground to work on. I mean, when in the winter time, a lot of those areas up there we just can't get into. We just can't get in there and physically do the work because the weather runs us out. We've got some high ground that we can get to. That's kind of what we do. We look at projects and we say, okay, winter's coming on, we need to save this project to this time so that we can keep our crews running all winter long. We were very successful with it last year until January. January hit, and I don't think there's any dry ground anywhere in Mississippi in January, February. But that would be, yes, sir.
Another thing, and we've been sort of talking as a board, maybe to jump in with our county forces to try and do some of the things that you all not able to get to. But we sort of wondered about that process and what's all involved with DEQ. Can you sort of walk us through a scenario that'll have to take place to go in and start cleaning creeks and?
Yes, sir. I know Skinner and Hollis are two of the ones that y'all talked about. Let's just talk about those. What you would do is what we prefer you to do. You can do it one of two ways. You can just come in here as a board and say, adopt a resolution that says Tom D. River Valley Water Management District is requested to clean out Hollis Creek from this point to this point. You can do that. Or you can call, before you do the resolution, the supervisor can contact our office, the road manager, whoever y'all work through, and say, can y'all come look at Hollis Creek with us? And I'll send my project manager down, who is also an environmental scientist, which he understands wetlands, he understands what we can go into and what we can't. And he'll come down here and walk it with you. He'll go through there, he'll look at it, he'll see what can be taken out, he'll evaluate the conditions, and he will help write that resolution for you. One reason we like doing that is a lot of times in these resolutions, some of the resolutions we get from the counties, they try to be very specific in what they do. They say, we want 2,000 feet cleared out, we want this, we want this. It's better if we can be involved on the front end before we get something definitive. We prefer to say approximately. That way, when we get there, if somebody missed something and there's something 20 feet down, 20 yards down the creek, we can reach out and grab that rather than saying, your resolution was for 2,000 feet, here's according to the GPS, this is 2,000 feet right here, and we can't go down there unless y'all do another resolution. We leave, have to come back, get it back in line. We try to be flexible to a certain point with that. Once the resolution is done, he'll work up a fact sheet that I take to the board, to the executive committee once a month. Have an executive committee meeting once a month, have 9 members on that committee. As long as the estimated cost is below $30,000, they have the authority to approve it. If it goes over $30,000, then I'll have to take it to my full board. And that's once a quarter. So now you can see that schedule, if it's over $30,000, that schedule can get pushed out to where I'm gonna get an approval once every 3 months. Once the board approves it, we send it back to the county and give you a letter saying it's been approved, and we send you all the paperwork. That's all the easements. The supervisor or whoever y'all get to do it. Some counties use the supervisor, some counties use the road manager, some counties use their board attorney to go out and physically get easements signed that allow us to go in and do that. We've got a right of entry that the board president will sign. We've got an attorney certificate that your board attorney will sign saying that y'all have looked up and down that creek at this work zone. You're certifying that we have clear path to go, that there's not a holdout in it, that all the leases are in order, and that we can go in. Then once we get that paperwork back, a work order is issued for it. We put a work order number on it, it goes into our list of projects to be done.
Are there any approvals to DEQ or anything like that?
We do not send anything to DEQ. What we work under is the Corps of Engineers nationwide permits. And if there's a DEQ issue, which normally those issues are gonna be the DEQ issues and the Corps issues are gonna deal with wetlands. If my environmental guy goes in there and there's an issue with, he sees the soil type, he sees the fauna that's growing, he sees any of those things, and he's gonna let you know right then, we can't go through here, we can't go in here. And that doesn't mean you can't. What he's telling you is that there's a whole new process. We've got to go to Corps of Engineers, we've got to get permits, we've got to go through, it may cost y'all money because you may have to do a delineation, you may have to do all those things required to allow you to go through that area. I mean, there are times that you can't help it, you have to go get a blockage out of those areas, and you may have to get a Corps of Engineer permit. And sometimes the Corps may want you to hire an outside service to come in and evaluate that area. And we don't pay for that part of it. All we do is look at it and tell you it's going to require a Corps permit, and then we will help through the process. Don't get me wrong, we will help lead through the process. we'll notify the Corps, we'll do all those things. Sometimes they'll want an outside person to come in and do an evaluation, to do a delineation on it. No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to bring before the board, the issue of Skinner Creek between the country club and Poorhouse Road, that area that we talked about, which Mr. Dodd's brought, we've been talking to. I visited with the mayor over the weekend, again today, she called me today, and the city forces are willing to go in there and use their equipment and their staff and clean that area out before it gets wet. They would like just a resolution from us to allow them to go and do that. They will clean it out from, and of course we'll have to get some, I'll have to get some right of entries just from a few places like the church and, you know, the development area. But they're wanting to go ahead before it starts raining, go in there and do that. So the city, the mayor just said, could I please get an interlocal agreement from the board so they can go ahead and address that before winter gets here? Do you see any issues with that?
I don't know your rules and regulations on what the city can do and what y'all can do. I mean, if it's a cooperative agreement between you and the city or some other agency agreement.
I guess the thing that my concern, and I had an alderman that reached me, and
He called me.
she had the mayor, that we're trying to make sure that we're okay, but also if the city goes in there, in other words, they're digging out that creek, are they gonna have any?
Well, I think they would cover that, you know, and when we did the interlocal agreement, that would be their responsibility, their engineers looked,
I just
so
don't
that
want
they
them,
could do
in other
it,
words,
so-
if they go through there and dig that creek out, which is necessary, are they gonna hit a roadblock with the DEQ? Supervisor Howard had mentioned that.
I don't think,
Just in your
I don't think it will, Mr. Chairman. I think if they do it correctly, I think they can do that under a nationwide permit with Corps of Engineers. I think because what you can do is you can go in on these creeks and streams and pull debris out and pile that debris up. You can't increase the width, increase the depth, you can't dredge, you can't do those type of things. But you can go in and get debris out.
What about a tree growing in the middle of it?
Yeah, you can cut it down.
That's considered debris.
If it's impeding for,
But you can't dig the stump out.
I wouldn't dig the stump out. I don't know, I'd have to go back and do a little research on that one, but anytime we go in and do any ditch work, we're not taking stumps out. We're going in, I'll send a crew in with a saw, they'll cut it off. We wanna leave that structure to help hold the banks and to hold that salt.
That brought up another issue. We had some people sort of talking to us about some issues, and we've got them all over the county.
Yes, sir. I'm sure you do.
But they were saying like straighten this out, and so that was some of the things that they're saying in order to get proper flow, we need to go in and straighten this out or dig this part out.
We have to stick with the center line of the creek. That's what we have to do. I know I've got a huge map of all of these counties in this watershed on my wall. It goes back to probably around 1940, and there has been over the years legislation through and with Corps of Engineers to channelize a lot. Trimcane was channelized. Any of these creeks you see, when you pull it up on the map and you see a straight line, that's a channel. And most of those were authorized by Corps of Engineers. And so there's some others. I can't call them off the top of my head, but there may be some others on that map that just never got channelized. And we can pick that back up working with y'all. Y'all working through, local CODEL, through the congressional delegation to see if there's a possibility of getting funding and working with Corps to have a project that would channelize something because of drainage.
Let me ask you this, and it's a little different, and the reason I asked this question, this is almost like we're at the pilot stage of this program here, is the gentleman that came talking about the creek. It was a channel, then it went left, right, left, right. He's saying that the creek itself pushing out of the bank and kind of moving.
It does.
Can't
put it back.
You can't put it back.
Can't let it go back. Wherever it is when we get there.
Here it is, I'll give you my copy. He actually, there you go.
Could the interlocal agreement be between Tom Bigby River Management and the city? rather than to sit in the county?
Well, the only person that we can have an agreement with is y'all. Now, what y'all do with the city, we do it all the time. We just got through cleaning out a creek in Nettleton. The city of Nettleton requested it through the Board of Supervisors. They put a resolution in asking the Board of Supervisors for help. The Board of Supervisors turned around and gave us a resolution requesting that we do it. I mean, that's the way that process can work. On something like this, we can go in and we can.
That's Hollis though, right there, that's not Skinner. Yeah.
Okay, we would go in on something like that where the breach is and try to reestablish the bank, just to where it's not.
There's a sewage lagoon right there where it's coming out, and there's a sewage lagoon, so that's a major concern for the people that live in that area. But if we could go back to the Skinner Creek, just on the city part, and I asked Attorney Rob Robertson to address that and see if there's any issues.
For us to be able to cooperate with the city of do Skinner Creek, we're gonna have to have an interlocal agreement to be able to do something with them. So for us to move forward with that, I would need a motion.
Well, let me ask this. I thought we got Mr. Kennedy here to get the process of what we wanted to do. And originally, it was said that we were gonna identify projects in each district, go and assess those projects that we identify, bring them back to the board, and then categorize them from most important to least important. So it seems like now we just wanna start giving him projects to
But
go
this
do.
isn't for them to do. This
I know,
This is the city taking on an issue.
But I thought we brought him here to get our process on how we wanted to do this. And there's nothing wrong with the city going to do it, but would the county be the one responsible for that permit to allow the city to do it, or do we just have to do it interlocal and let's tell them to do it?
Well,
And that really doesn't have anything to do with him.
right, this
is
from his perspective, he's kind of out of the.
right. So I was wondering if we could. How did this get involved in?
I honestly don't know. I think it's just a water issue.
I know, but what I'm saying, can we take care of that once we finish?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. I'm just wondering how
My
this
main
got.
concern was the DEQ side of it, is that I was not wondering, I didn't know, and I appreciate you coming here, was
Absolutely.
what would get, I guess, us in a pickle as far as moving this bank or moving, and you cleared that up, is that
Go in and get the trash out and don't move it.
trash out, and I think that was our consensus. Supervisor Trainer said, just dredge it out, but I was just making sure,
Just don't use the word dredge.
or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, I know what you're saying, I
Clean
mean,
it out.
perception wise, that's what I
Right.
want you to do.
I hate to say this, what creek are we talking about now? 'Cause I'm-
We were talking about the process of the core working projects in our county now.
I'm sorry.
And then we've infused a whole different thing that really doesn't involve him.
Once we get through with him, we'll do that.
One thing I might add, let me add something to that, because I know y'all are talking about Skinner and Hollis, I know you're talking about that. And, Mr. Montgomery and I talked a little bit before about, y'all are new into this. All these other counties we've been doing maintenance on these creeks since 1968. So the creeks are in fairly good shape. I mean, we go in and we pull stuff out because that's just the nature of trees growing, stuff getting in it and getting lodged up at bridges and things like that.
We're kind of behind.
Well, you are, and I mean, a lot of the local farmers, back when this was a huge agriculture, there was a lot of agriculture and dairy farms like that, a lot of those farmers kept those creeks cleaned out, us being one of them. But that has evolved. As y'all know, there's not that, you don't see that much pasture land like you used to, so those.
I'd say half the hardwoods in Oklahoma County are on creek.
That's right. So now those have grown up, so now you've got the issues. It's better if we can, and I've said I would like to sit down with your county engineer, with whoever, get NRCS involved in this, to look from the county line back. Let's go to the bottom of the slopes and start working our way back. Rob, you may have already considered this, but when you go in and start opening from the top down, you're increasing water flow, and if you're gonna get in trouble with DEQ, that may be one thing you do, because now you have gone in, cleaned that creek out, and you're pushing more water. Not any more, but faster. The water's getting there faster, which means you're gonna possibly cause a little more water issues downstream, because the water's getting there a lot quicker now.
You bring up a good point. That's one of the things that the board had spoken about, the concern. But one of the questions I have is, as we're situated in Ottawa County, and we know water doesn't just care about boundaries. Whenever it gets outside of that, whether it be the city, the county, or other counties around us, has there been any, I guess, functional water flow program that's been done for the 3 or 4 counties that surround us, or are we just, because when you do this as a hodgepodge, I hate to say it, you end up getting a hodgepodge result.
You do, absolutely.
Is that something that needs to be taken at a state level and considered as far as how to approach this? Because we are existing in a situation right now where we have county constituents. Each of these districts have county constituents, and for that matter, within the city limits as well, with flooding that's backing up. And one of the reasons that you became an asset to what we were discussing was that there's going to end up being some roadway issues, and frankly, it's going to get worse. Is there a program or because I think one of the questions that each of my members have asked were, how do we get started? And this makes sense the way we're doing it, so that we're not dumping additional water out onto the city, or additional water out onto our neighbors in Clay County or wherever. Is there a way to approach this? Because I know that we're identifying our subject matter here in terms of what we're trying to do to help our constituents, but in the bigger picture of this, is there a way for us to approach this?
You know, we can help look at that. I mean, if we sit down and we look at where these creeks and streams are going, and see where they cross the county line, then we can look over there. If any of them go into Winston County, we don't do anything in Winston County. I mean, that's not one of our counties. If they go into Noxubee County, then we do work in Noxubee County, and we can deal with that. But I think most of the stuff y'all have going into Noxubee County is gonna either be coming down Browning Creek, but it's all going into Noxubee River. I say Browning Creek, there are other creeks, but I mean, it's gonna eventually hit Noxubee River and go into the Noxubee County. Which once it hits that river, there's not a whole lot you're gonna do with it anyway. I mean, it's kind of one of these.
It's where it is.
It is what it is. I mean, we can go in and get a few trees out every now and then, but Noxubee's one of these that's kind of self-cleaning. It gets up, gets out, and it pushes debris out of the way, and it pretty much stays open.
I guess to piggyback on what he's saying, and then you and I talked briefly down here, and we had a great conversation, and it made a lot of sense. In other words, we're looking at the whole of Ottawa County, how it flows, and to our end is Supervisor Howard had said we're going to bring different projects forward, but also we're kind of relying on you as to say, well, that makes sense that this one's flooding, but we really need to start here. And so your expertise in how the water sheds.
We can do that. We'll be glad to do that.
I guess, can you get a master plan to us as far as how our water flows? This is what I was thinking in my head as I was coming back, is that maybe, how does the water flow through the county, these creeks, that creek, and where do we want to take it to? And I think you've got a lot of knowledge, around us, and even here, because that's where you're from, as to how our creeks flow. So, do we need to wait for that master plan that you're kind of having, or do we need to?
Here's what I would suggest. Well, I know you have some immediate needs. I mean, even though I tell you the optimal is for us to start the county lines and work our way back upstream. That's optimal. I know there are people out there that need some help. I mean, I know y'all got issues in your districts where people need some help. We will build that plan over time, I think we will continue to keep looking downstream and looking and trying to make sure what we're doing downstream. But I would go ahead and let's get my man down here on the different projects, and let him meet with you and go look at those things, and let's see what it is. I mean, it may be something that's very simple with a blockage at a culvert. It may be a blockage that's just causing some issues there, but the majority of the creek is cleaned out.
A big old
That
tree
we
fell through.
can come in and get out. So let's start it that way. And that way it'll give y'all a chance to understand the process too. And in the meantime, we'll be looking. I'll start looking at the watershed and seeing what it's gonna do. I think NRCS is a wealth of knowledge. I mean, as far as the soil conservation part of it, they got the plans and the maps to look at that. If there ends up being some type of master plan, we have identified some of these issues, then we might get Corps of Engineers involved with it to let them take a look at it.
Well, I guess we're just kind of trying to get it off the ground. Like I said, it's kind of a pilot thing, new to us. But could you, and I'd be flexible to whenever he can get down here in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
I'd be glad to ride with him, show him my.
Well, we talked, and that's sort of what I was talking about, develop a comprehensive drainage plan for Octavia County. And you mentioned about having the expertise and everything to look at Octavia County and see which way water flows north and south and what's the main avenue.
Let me clarify something real quick. I'm not an expert in that, but what we can do, and I mean, what we're gonna do is pull the map. We're gonna pull the map up and look at all the, I'll just pull an aerial photo up and look at a map that shows all the creeks and streams. And I mean, there's nothing magic about us doing that. So I mean, it's just us looking at the same things that y'all look at. I mean, I don't have the capability in my office to go in and tell you what size that watershed is and how much water's running through it, and it's whether or not it'll carry that. But, NRCS does have the capability of doing some of that, and if we can, between y'all and between my organization, if we can get them involved and work with them, I think that we work with NRCS extremely close in the far northeast. Their office out of Tupelo, and they've got an engineer up there that's been extremely valuable with us. Not only with helping answer some of those questions like you're talking about, but also with their EWP program, their Emergency Watershed Protection Program, which is a 75-25 program, and it's and then we pick up the 25%. So in essence, it doesn't cost the county anything to do that. And I don't know if y'all have done those in the past or not, but tornado damage, when you start dropping tornado material, damaged material into these creeks and streams, there's a program that you can get a clean out on that, because it's gonna back water up to a road and start causing problems to roads. Roads, public utilities, things like that are washing out around the roads, EWP takes care of that. I mean, but there has to be a weather event that triggers it, and you got a timeline. But NRCS is the first point of contact for y'all on that. I got Knoxville County lined up with it, and didn't know really what I was doing with them, I guess, because all of a sudden we got 9 projects at one whack with them on EWP. So they're taking full advantage of that.
Well, Mr. Kenneth.
Yes, sir.
I'm concerned about the process so that we would not be delayed. And I know you talked about, first thing, we need to identify some creeks that need some attention. That's the first thing. Easement agreement, we're gonna have to help with the easement agreement.
You will do the easement, yes, sir.
Now, the attorney work. Can you define, give us some information about what type of attorney work they need to,
He's gonna certify the easements. He's gonna give me a certification that y'all got all the easements. It's a normal attorney certificate that goes with most of the easements that are done for properties.
Right, that's it. So most of the work is getting the easement.
That is the majority of the work, is physically going out and, and you have somebody that's got an issue. One person may have an issue, and, where it's 2 landowners, The worst you're gonna have is, if they're on opposite sides, worst thing is, we're only gonna be able to work from one side if the other guy doesn't wanna do it. But the problem you get into in a lot of places, especially around development, is you may have, because of lot size, you may have 20, and then you're gonna have the one in the middle, may be in an estate, and it's got 15 heirs to it. And you gotta get signatures from all of that unless you can find the right person. So that's what you get into, and then at that point, you say, okay, well, I'm not gonna do it, but you've got the main blockage right in the middle of it. So anything you do to the north is not, to the upstream end, isn't gonna do anything, so all you can work is from there south. That's what we get into. I mean, that's what the counties get into when they start doing it. We cannot go in and just say, well, we're gonna clean that out. They have to give us an easement across their property to do it. Now, when we start doing, if we do any culvert work for you, on big culvert replacements, if the landowners on either side do not want, and we get this with timber companies. I've got one right now. Timber company won't sign my easements, I won't sign theirs. Because some of their requirements. So we work out of the center of the road. We just don't get on. We do all our work out of the road right away to replace that culvert and do the rock job on the side of the road. We don't get over on them. We stay on the county right away. But that happens. I mean, there are people that don't want to sign that easement for one reason or another. They may be mad at the landowner across from them, but they just may not want us on their property. But we're gonna have to clear a path to get those big track hoes and stuff down through there, and we're gonna pile material up. We're gonna leave it for them to deal with. They can either burn it, or most of them just let it sit there and just let it.
So you windrow or you pile it?
Either, whatever the homeowner wants.
So
Whatever the
it
landowner
can be a
wants.
one kind of continuous pile, it won't just be hodgepodge, you know?
Either way, we'll just.
Windrow is about the best, you know?
I agree, and if it were me down the side of a creek, that's what I would want, because you're creating that spoil bank down through there, and, you know, most of these creeks we're doing, that we're having to go back on up in that part of the state, already have a spoil bank. So there's not an issue with us going back in there. We know for a fact, if we go in and see an existing spoil bank, that we're good. And we'll take the material we bring out, and we'll put it right back up on top of that existing spoil bank.
We're behind. We're definitely behind. Let me
We
ask you this.
can do our best to catch it up.
Okay, so will you send your project manager down and, give him a week or whatever he needs and say, okay, he'll be here at this time, so whatever projects you got in mind, your day will be, Wednesday, this district will be Tuesday, whatever.
We can do that. We can set it up and get him down here for a couple of days and let y'all show him what you got.
Okay.
And he may not do a complete walk out of each one of them. I mean, you know, you can identify, and I keep going back to Skinner and to Hollis, because I looked those up. I mean, Hollis Creek goes all the way from north of Pecan Acres, all the way to Noxubee River, all the way through Blocker Bottom. I mean, it's a big creek, so I mean, if you can identify those sections for him, he'll go out there and he'll look at it, you know, unless you just want to walk it with him, he'll go out there with you, ride him out there and show him what you're wanting and all, and he will come back and he will walk it out. He'll physically walk that stretch that you're wanting. He'll put on his hip boots or his snake boots, whatever it is, and he walks it out. He wants to see every bit of it. He takes pictures along, and it's all GPS coordinates on it, and he brings it back so that we can look at it and present it to our board. But, and he'll help you with your resolution. He'll come down, we can do that, and he'll come back and he'll help you with those resolutions. I'm gonna meet with Emily this afternoon. I'll come back after y'all get through and give her some examples of some resolutions that we've written. Some of the boards do the resolutions themselves, some of their attorneys do them. It's just board dependent on what y'all want to do. It's all about y'all.
When can you set that up for us?
I can talk to him tomorrow and see. I know he's got a hunting trip coming up here pretty soon, but you know, that's just part of the business. We're a small office. I told y'all that before. Our overhead in the front office is not much. We got two ladies. We got one bookkeeper and one person that handles the board, and then it's my project manager and me. And then everybody else deals with all the crews and all the stuff in the back, so I can get you on this schedule, and I'll just put it, just, if you want me to have him call,
Sure.
you got one person you want him to coordinate through, or do we need to?
You can call call Miss Emily, and she'll call us, and I'm sure, and say, hey, can you meet Wednesday morning? Can you meet Wednesday afternoon?
That'd be fine.
You know.
It's just
It
easier if we
works.
get, he's got one, that way,
Sure,
he
yeah.
knows who that point of contact is, that when he has a problem, if he has paperwork issues, or he has anything else, it just doesn't work real well, because I've got one or two counties that still want to handle it, each supervisor wants to handle everything themselves, and, that's kind of a nightmare. If we can have a point of contact, and we'll do that, I'll get him in touch with Emily, and we'll start doing that. He can probably give you some dates that he has open, and see if that range of dates works. If it doesn't, we'll find something. We'll start working on it.
Yeah, y'all will work within the city limits because it's in Ocklawaha County.
Yes,
Yeah.
but y'all have to do the resolution.
But like he said earlier, they work.
We've worked in Aberdeen, we've worked in Nettleton, we've worked everywhere.
Here's a question, and I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around it. If y'all are gonna work through us, then we need to be getting with the city to coordinate that side of it as well, is that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
The city will send you the city would need to give you a resolution requesting you, the board of supervisors, to help with a problem on
X,
X, Y,
whatever.
Z. Then you will take that and do a resolution for Tom Digby to come in and help you, to assist you with that problem.
Do you see any of these projects being done this year, though, before winter? I mean, before the rains?
We can do that.
Before the rains hit?
Okay, all right, just making sure where we're at with that.
Let's see, let me think where we are.
We're in October.
I've got a board, you're not gonna have anything worked up between now and, because of the projects for the October board. Data sheets have to be done by in the next 2 weeks. So you're looking at November board, so it'll be between now and January 1, I just don't. That doesn't mean, understand, just because it starts raining doesn't mean we can't get in there to work. Now, if it's ground that the machines just will not physically stand up on, then no, we're not gonna go in there and make a mess. If our machines will stand up and we don't make a mess, those guys, they put on their boots and get out there and hit it. I mean, just rain is not gonna be a big factor. And we worked all the way until, mid-January, until all the rain hit, and then we were just starting to pick back up when the virus hit in March. We were just starting to pick back up and get back on the roll, and then we got furloughed again, so. And we even worked through January, February. It's just that we worked fully, we didn't have full crews out working. We were able to pick and choose. Here in Lowndes County, northern Lowndes County, a lot of gravel. I mean, you're not gonna fall through the ground. Noxubee River Bottom in Noxubee County, you're not gonna go out there in the winter time and do a clean out. I mean, it just depends. Some of them we can put a track over. We just did Nagby Creek over in Columbus. Traco ran in the center of the creek the whole way through. Put him down in there, hitting the dozer right down the bottom of the creek, and they cleaned it out all the way through there.
Wow.
Some of them hold up. So.
Mr. Kennedy, we certainly appreciate you coming and clearing up the beginning of this process.
Anytime y'all need me, I'm here.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
You had mentioned that the state will appoint somebody to represent the county, and the county's got to appoint somebody to go on, be put on the board.
You do.
At what point does that need to take place?
Now,
Okay.
I've got a full board meeting coming up in October, and I would love for y'all to have somebody appointed.
Okay, and is there any certain qualifications that the person will appoint has? Any type of knowledge that's preferred?
I mean, we prefer, if you're asking me as the executive director, yes, ma'am. Somebody that's, one is gonna take care of y'all. You got to find somebody that's gonna represent y'all, but somebody that does have some common sense and understands that you know, they represent y'all, but they'll be able to understand the overall workings of the district, and that we do have 13 counties that we deal with, and they're not only just voting and dealing with stuff like City Hall, they're looking at the district as a whole also. Other than that, I mean,
And how often will they meet? I believe with their
quarterly.
Right.
Where do they
Quarterly,
meet at? Where do you meet?
Tupelo.
Tupelo.
Right now, it depends. Right now, we normally meet at Tupelo Country Club, and normally we would have a meal and all that, but right now it's just business. We just go in, do our business, and get out. No meal, no nothing. Keep everybody separated. We've been doing some meeting at our shop. I'll take a chair and spread out in the shop back there for the executive committee. And
Does it need to be a board member?
No, I didn't.
Can't be a board member.
y'all can't be, no, sir.
Okay.
You cannot. The AG rule on that because of separation of the different, what's the word I'm looking for? Powers maybe.
Separation of the powers.
Executive.
You can't be a.
That's right.
Appropriate.
You can't go outside of your branch.
We only get one representative.
You get to appoint one representative. You'll have two, but the governor gets to appoint one of those. Yes, sir.
Well, is anything else for Mr. Kenner tonight?
Cleared up a lot of things for us.
Y'all, I mean, I know I've given cards out, and I'm gonna give some more, to all of y'all. Please, if you have any questions, my cell phone's on it. I'll take whatever calls you got.
Okay. And I got your number too, so I may give you a shout, but in the meantime, get with Emily,
I am.
with your rep, that way we can kind of set some days to.
I'm gonna come back by and see her and go over some resolution stuff with her. I got some copies of resolutions that have been done, just so y'all can have some examples to go by.
Mr. President, like I say, Mr. Kenneth, we have you here because we wanna say, we're ready for you to get started.
Well,
As soon as you can.
Absolutely.
To take care of some of the concerns that we have in the city and other places, we're ready to get started.
we're ready to help.
We appreciate you. Anything else?
Anything else?
None.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Y'all have a good day.
Thank you. On those same lines, I do believe we met and we cleared up our, issue with Mr. Kenner. But Supervisor Miller had brought before us about Skinner Creek. She talked to the mayor.
This is just the area, the cities were willing to go in and use their forces, and we just need to do an interlocal agreement. Those homes were already flooded, it's an immediate issue. So they're willing to go in, so I just wanted to make the motion that we do an interlocal agreement and let the city go in between the country club and Poorhouse Road and clean out Skinner Creek.
Got a motion.
I do got a question on that. Mr. Kenneth just told us there are some things you can and can't do when you go in to clean these creeks out, like straightening the creek out and stuff. Rob, are we gonna be the responsible for what happens, or are we, who will be responsible for staying within the guidelines of how this got to be done?
All right, the biggest issue that we're gonna have to do is this first part of that is gonna be how the interlocal agreement is connected. So if we have an interlocal agreement that says that we're the responsible party for whatever happens, then we're the responsible party. However, from my understanding, and keep in mind, I haven't seen the interlocal agreement, we haven't been working on it yet, so I don't want to suggest that I have all the working parts of this. My understanding is that the city is gonna go in with their forces, and they're gonna be the responsible party for getting all of that together, is my understanding. That does not relieve us of our duty to make certain that we cover our constituents the way we're supposed to, because that's the normal process anyway. But as far as the cost involved, to my understanding, they're the ones that are bearing that cost, and they're the ones that are gonna go in and do the legal easements.
No, my question is this: there are some guidelines and regulations that they've got to follow when they go in to do those creeks.
Right.
According to what Mr. Kenneth just told us. My question is, are we responsible if those are not followed? That's my question.
What he's getting at, if what they do causes more damage
Right,
downstream,
correct.
who's gonna be responsible?
Well, I think the other part of that is, he talked about that there was no problem with us going in and addressing immediate issues, because as many issues as we have, he said we can't start at the end of a creek and work our way all the way back up yet. So this is an immediate issue. These homes are already flooding. And Mr. Dodd brought pictures, he walked it. We can see that the debris just needs to be cleaned out of the creek. You know, and the city is willing to go in and do that because the homes are already flooding.
And I don't have a problem with that. I'm asking, when they go in and do this, as long, if it's not done according to the rules and regulations, and it causes a problem further down, who is responsible? That's all I'm
As
asking.
long as we're not going in and dredging, now, and therein lies here's the big hiccup. If we go in there with a big dredger, and let's say we make it a wider creek, and then we dump more water off further down the road, and it causes a flooding problem therein lies where the hiccup comes in. We're gonna have problems.
And only thing I'm asking is who's responsible if something goes
We're
wrong?
always responsible.
Can we, in our interlocal agreement though, can we say that we are saying it's okay for the city to go in and get the debris out of the ditch? That that's the scope of work. And if they get outside of the scope of work, then it's their liability because we
And that's
only gave
right.
them the right.
And that's what they're gonna do. They're not gonna change the amount of water that's going down that creek. They're just gonna clean the debris that's hindering the flow of water. I mean, that is the difference between this. They're not digging at the creek where it,
Right.
you
But I
know,
was
it's the
just
same
saying-
amount of water.
Y'all,
They're
I'm
just
not-
cleaning the debris
I'm
out.
not trying to stop them. I wanna help them. All I'm asking is, can we put in the resolution that Octagon County will not be responsible in case that something happens?
Right.
That's all I'm asking. I'm not trying to stop them.
No, you're just.
I'm glad that.
Because like I said,
I'm just-
the main thing that, and that got my wheels turning is the DEQ side of it, is I don't want them or us to be in, to do
Well,
something
I-
we can't legally do.
I remember it was one guy saying we need to straighten this out and stuff, and he just plainly said you
do
can't
it.
go in and
Even if
straighten anything.
even if it's blown the bank out, you can't.
Right, you can't do it. So that's all I'm saying, if we can put in the resolution that Octagon County will not be responsible.
She made the motion, you want to second
Can I
it?
attach one more thing in there to your, because I think I get your concern too, that we basically attach in here that this has got to comply with Octagon County flood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I think there's something else too. Who's gonna physically do the work? It's our,
City,
it's our,
City Darkle.
yeah, that should be in the resolution also.
Yes, sir.
But we're voting on a resolution that really hasn't been established yet. We don't.
Y'all are giving me
even
the responsibility to go ahead and get
Okay,
it.
now, who's gonna physically do the work? I wouldn't want to see our road department out doing that for weekends rather.
The city's supplying the labor, the legal, anything that backs it up, their forces. So, their attorney will overlook all of that.
Why needed? Are they gonna work outside of the city?
Yeah, that's in the county.
Okay,
That's where the line is.
okay.
They're gonna go clean that whole area through
Oh,
there.
they did that.
Yeah.
That's a good deal for us.
It is good. All I'm
He's
saying-
just making sure that something that they do
That's
doesn't
right.
stain us
That's
in the future. And look, we're all trying to figure this out, so we wanna make sure that we do it legally. the
But
right
the flip
way.
side of it, if you don't do anything, you still responsible.
Well, and look,
That's correct.
I know some of the people who live in country club estates and, they bought some houses, they built some houses, the developers built
We're
in
gonna
the
do
city.
some way downstream.
They quite honestly, they didn't expect to have these problems and they are.
told us.
So we're trying to fix
The
it.
city, one thing the city gonna do is take their trash over and go
I
down.
don't have a
The
problem.
motion is,
Will somebody second my motion?
alright, so we got a motion made by Supervisor Miller, we got a second by Supervisor Trainer. Bearing that we add all the legal jargon in there that says that the work that they do, and then given the scope of the work that they do, if you go outside of that scope, then it be noted that that is done by city forces. And I don't think they're gonna do that, guys, we're just trying to help, but I'm glad we cleared all that up. So we got a motion by Supervisor Miller, second by Supervisor Trainer. Any more discussion?
Yeah, we will get a chance to review the resolution before we actually, before we go forward.
I can send you
Possible.
an email since I get it together.
And then possible changes be made on it before we get it final.
Just like all the.
Well, this is a resolution to do it interlocal.
Right, it's gotta go to the AG now.
Yeah.
So do they have, does this give them the right to start today, or do they have to wait?
No, they're gonna wait until this is done.
Yeah, we have to.
That's why we need to make sure it's legally correct.
Yes, sir.
To go through all of that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second, and Supervisor, Williams had brought up that we have the right to review this, and it will go, of course, to the AG before they will be given the right to go in there, but I think,
Why would it go to the agent?
Interlocal agreements.
and make sure that in there, his opinion, that they can do it.
It ain't gonna take longer than if we get, Tom Bigby,
No,
Waterway
I don't
Management
believe so.
District. They already have permission from DEQ and have permission to move forward already.
Yeah, but he was saying
He
that
was saying,
it won't even hit the board until our deal won't even hit the board until November, and then it's had to go.
And I think this is no different, it's a little larger, but this is no different than some of the, some of the, problems we've had on private property that have come before our board that we've approved right then. And so, I think it's prudent that we as a board do that for residents and, country club estates as well. So we got a motion and a second on the floor, any more discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank y'all for approving that. I really appreciate the city willing to take on that expense as well.
And I appreciate it too. It's not that we even want them.
We just wanna make sure that we're covered, so. All right, and Miss Livingston's not here, so we'll skip that. Does she have anything, Miss Emily?
No, sir, she did not.
All right, well then it's on to you, Miss Emily, County Administration.
Okay. Got a request from Justice Court to increase their petty cash pay from $350 to $500. They use it to make change.
Motion by Supervisor Miller, second by Supervisor Williams, to, go from $350 to $500, in the petty cash to Justice Court. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
I have two bus turnaround requests, one at Tina Errol's at 55 Red Drive, and one at, the Malone's at 533 Crawford Road.
That should be Johnny Malone, should be the first name, Johnny Malone.
Okay.
All right, need a motion and a second. I've got a motion by Supervisor Williams, second by Supervisor Howard, and we'll just do both of them. And to approve both, turnarounds at, 58 Fred Drive and 533 Crawford. All those in favor say aye. Motion carries.
I had emailed y'all bid results from the miscellaneous road work the other day, and I put a copy there on the table for you this morning. We want to approve these bidders. We only received one bid for each category. That, concerning the engineer said based on how busy everybody is right now, that it's understandable.
How are the prices compared to last year's prices? Is there anything that raises the eyebrow?
Last year price for full cementing was around 60,000, and the milling and everything was around 82 or something like that, so it's up quite a bit.
So we need to, accept these bid results, and if I'm hearing that correct.
We have the full cementing, we got, striping, and we got asphalt paving, I think. What Murphy's in there for.
Our road manager is here. What are you?
I looked at them, I mean, I don't see a problem with them, like you said, everything is going up, everything is up high. We just use them when we just really have to.
All right, I need a motion and a
So
second.
moved.
Motion by Supervisor Howard, second by Supervisor Williams, to accept the, these bids for each different category as stated before. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous.
I have a budget amendment that came in at the last minute for the sheriff's department for legal line seatbelt grant reimbursement. Need to get an order for the budget amendment and also one for the volunteer fire department.
Can we do them together or we do them
Yeah, we're
separate?
doing together.
Motion by Supervisor Miller, second by Supervisor Trainer. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Yeah.
Motion carries.
And, Mr. David, is you gonna bring anything before the board on that knuckle boom?
Yes. I was asked to come up with a plan as far as, getting limbs and debris from beside the road. After putting a lot of thought into it, I concluded that this would not be something that I could compel the road workers to do. And, the best way to do it would be with a knuckle boom truck. And so I sent specs to, the administrator, and I'm requesting that, we advertise for a knuckle boom truck to see, at least see what it costs.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Trainer, second by Supervisor Howard, that we just advertised for another line truck. Any discussion on that? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Anything else, Mr. Bagley?
Yes, I got with an auction company. We came up with a list of items to, put in an auction. I have a list of those items.
Sure.
Sorry to get them out sooner.
When does this auction take place?
October 3rd, I believe. But I don't know if we can, I don't know if we can just hire this guy, professional services, or how we're gonna have to do that as far as, getting it to auction. The thing that might, be questionable in this list is a D5 dozer that we have. It's an old dozer, the kind with, clutches like here, but no one can operate. Maybe, well, a couple of guys can operate it, but it's dangerous. No one can be taught to operate it.
What about the motor grader that's the same way? We still have that one?
Yeah, we have a wheel motor,
I
motivated
mean, the
with
one
a
that
string.
has the,
Yeah.
can somebody operate it?
We got a couple of guys that can operate it, but we don't use that one. You know, very seldom we use it.
And we
I
got
mean, I
rid of
would-
it?
We haven't. I would love to get rid of it.
Well, I mean, don't we think since,
One with
It
the,
might-
you refer to one with the ditch machine on site?
Yeah.
it's the one, but I don't think it's, the reason I'm saying that is I don't think it gets used a lot. And it might have some value that with all the other equipment we're trying to buy right now. Cause it has the same type of, it has the, it's more complicated, you have to, more
More
complex,
manual,
cause it's
more manual.
old.
That's
Older.
the last one we bought.
That's the one with the ditch machine.
Ditch machine.
Yeah, that we don't
Little,
use.
it just-
That's the one you keep around.
Got blade,
Yeah.
got extra blade on the
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, no.
That's the one that kept
Yeah.
around the office area.
Yeah.
All right.
We seldom use it. I'd like to put it on the list if the board agrees to that.
I think if we're not using it, we should get rid of it myself and turn the money over to use for some equipment that we are using, but that's just my personal opinion.
If you, and
I
I'm
agree.
asking, and I'm not giving, I'm asking an estimation of about what you think these pieces of equipment may bring. You don't have that number, don't worry
I
about it.
don't have it. I just know it's really old.
You just know that these are the things that,
Right.
Okay, are we gonna have to take all this to auction, or they're gonna come here and auction?
It's in, we're gonna take it to auction in,
Okay.
Kosciuszko.
Okay, and what is their auction percent that they take? It's usually it's figured off the top.
I have that information. I think it's either 4 or 5%.
Okay. Because some of this,
And do they offer online and, in person or?
This will be online sale. How this one is gonna be only online.
It's only online.
but you have to get that equipment to them.
You gotta do.
Yeah.
And they
Okay.
kinda
But it's
run it.
part
Well, now,
of-
they may can come up here and
Yeah, they
you
might
can
be
take
coming
pictures
together.
and you may not have to take it since it's gonna be online.
But
They may-
usually, if you don't do that, you don't get nearly as much for the equipment.
Well, that's because people go up there and walk around and look at it, correct?
Right.
I guess my question is, but, it's there exhibited for people to come and see it.
yeah.
And in my experience, when we have had auctions at the horse park with tractors and things like that, the cleaner the stuff is, and the little things like the seat being replaced, if it has rips in it, makes a lot of difference in the revenue that it brings.
That and,
Okay.
and windows getting.
Windows, you know, I mean, in my experience, it brings a lot more if the equipment is clean and those little repairs that you can do have been done.
It's true.
But I don't think very much on here you want to expend a whole lot into. I think you'd be.
No, I'm just talking about the little-
Just give it a good,
Just get it,
give it a Polish bath and run.
get it going. But it won't be, I mean, you put a new seat on a tractor that's not running.
Well, I mean,
I
I'm just-
understand what you're saying,
Yeah,
though. Yeah, some of it's junk, and some of it could be
Some of it's
upgraded
very
just a little
valuable
bit.
now. This could be a great asset to some other people.
Yeah, it agree with it.
The items that considered junk, we might put them, I don't know.
I look here and see a
I'd
lot of
hate to
quality
haul
products right here,
haul a bunch of
guys.
junk down there and have to haul it back. But I do think we usually do better when we do it. We've done better with thinking on everything when we had on site. Or we
Yeah.
put it there as opposed to just on the internet.
If you need help getting a thing or two down there, I'm probably gonna go down there just on a personal level, so
Mhm.
like a full trailer or something, I may go. If you need, if you're running short on load, I can go down there.
Okay.
All right, well, you wanna add that to the list?
Yes.
Okay.
So, are you gonna remove the ditching machine and put it on another grader? To the ditching?
I don't think it would be.
What we gonna do about the ditch machine?
Ditching.
Well, it's not a machine. It's
No,
just
it's
an
attachment.
attachment.
It's attachment, right?
Right.
So you don't see value in the grader that's offset? Or, we're not talking about the grader that's offset, are we?
Right.
Yeah.
One that don't use.
But it's, when we were using it, it was really helping the ditches.
We could use it good.
I mean, we just bought that one.
Well, we just put it on there.
Yeah, it's just, basically.
And it was doing a good job with the
I
ditches.
mean, I've got several
It was doing
roads
an
that
absolute
were really,
good job.
it was transforming the ditches. If we, can we not, is that unit just not running? Is it just?
Well, it doesn't have, and then this, I don't know how much of an issue this is.
Doesn't have area.
It doesn't have air, and, it's difficult to operate. And so, I don't believe we use it all the summer, because it's for those reasons. I mean, people are just,
Yeah, when y'all cleaned out Ennis, all the ditches on Ennis Road, you used something different, didn't you?
we use regular grader.
Yeah, just the
It
regular
worked,
grader.
It worked fine. I mean, I know this, Houston Thompson Road, for example, the gravel corner, looked like it was terrible. And then we came in there, took some work, but I think Cleve did that, or Mark. I wanna say Mark did some of that.
Please, no longer.
And I know Cleve's not with us, but, I won't say, I know Mark did that.
Yeah.
Anyway, the results that I got out of that were very pleasing to me. I mean, and the people were noticing, if you think there's something that can replace that and keep that functionality up to take
Yeah.
those ditches
Right.
that were just eroded and, be able to keep upgrading them countywide, I mean, I think it's necessary.
Well, the guys aren't gonna, it's very challenging to compel the road workers to do certain work. Like throw bushes on the back of a truck or something like that. Or use that particular grader or any other equipment that they're gonna have to stay on all day when it's 91 and 93 degrees without air conditioning. People just seldom, they don't work that way anymore. They used to, but it's kind of
It
changed.
is awfully sad.
You think it's more valuable being told?
I think it is. But I'll look at it again, Mr. Montgomery, make sure.
I mean, I'd like in cooler weather in the spring and fall. I mean, it's sad to be able to let a unit like that go that has such possibilities. And I was seeing the beginnings of what I thought were kind of us moving into the future, the way that our ditches look. And I'm speaking for not only my district, I mean, I've seen other districts as well be upgraded. So I just, if there's something that can replace that function of that machine, I'm for it, but I don't want to give that away.
At the time, Victor got it. It was, and it may have been because he had people could operate it, maybe. But when he got it and we were using it, it worked really well.
That would operate.
Huh?
That would operate.
Yeah, that's right, that would operate. We got people out there that can.
But if it's not gonna be used, then we're not doing anything.
So what do they just refuse to get on the piece of equipment? I don't want to dive down to an employee thing.
They refuse to get on a piece of equipment, they refuse to put, if I say, okay, we're gonna take a crew out here, we're gonna, load these limbs on the back of this truck out of this ditch, and it doesn't work. I mean, the amount of, back breaking physical work.
Well, see, it has evolved from road hands to operator. Everybody's an operator.
$20 an hour.
Yeah, but
You gotta have operators. And then, of course, with the other things that you're dealing with, the limbs and other things, it's really, I mean, that's just the way things have evolved. And if we wanna be effective, we're gonna have to evolve with it.
Do we not have those machines?
That's
what I'm
But that's everywhere.
It's so unfortunate, but
We do it, but you can't.
you gotta have employees that are a
Express guys
little
can
more
work all the time,
versatile
they
than
won't work in the, they won't do what we do. I mean, they just,
Different day and time.
it is a different job.
Mr. didn't have air conditioning, so he had.
That's right. Some of these other contractors don't have them. Guys crawl them.
That's of course, that's a deep discussion, but
It is.
that's something that needs to be looked at for sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so do we need to take these, under advisement? Do we need to?
Just authorize them to move forward.
Yeah. So we'll go just that, authorize him to move forward on selling these pieces of equipment, motion by supervisor.
Plus the.
Plus the grader. Motion by Supervisor Trainer, second by Supervisor Miller. Any more discussion on the matter? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Mr. Baggy, get with me today or tomorrow, so I can find out if we can go with this and just one bid on that deal.
Okay.
Before we start moving anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Emily. Anything else? Not? We got county business, supervisors. I'll go this way. Supervisor Trainer.
Yes, sir, I wanna make a motion, we extend the curfew to October 5th.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Trainer, second by Supervisor Howard, 12 to 4.
12.
October the 5th. All those, any discussion on the matter?
No, but I think it would be nice for, the sheriff to share how successful that was with the calls we shared with everybody on that.
Yeah, we did. We had I got a text from the lieutenant on shift, said they had a great weekend. We went back and checked our calls from a couple of weeks ago. There were 200 from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Checked them this past weekend and they were down to 105. So we dropped 95 calls for service. So,
And no
large parties and that type of thing. So it was a great weekend for us. It was a good weekend.
We appreciate that, Sheriff. Any more discussion on the matter? Now, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Motion carries.
I have two right-of-way of entry permission forms I need to fill in minutes. One is for Bonnie Collier at 144 Hilltop Road, and the other one is for Jerry Shields at 2548 16th Section Road. And both of these projects have impact on the roadway.
Heard the request from Supervisor Trainer. Made the motion. Second by Supervisor Williams. Any more discussion on the matter? Not all those in favor say aye. Motion carries. Anything else?
That's it.
Supervisor Howard? Supervisor Williams? Supervisor?
I was just gonna share, I think I already told y'all that the first event back at Forest Park, how successful it was. Over 1,800 entries from 12 states, stayed in the community for 4 days. Local vendors serviced, restaurants, other people. It was a really good event. We also had there was also a baseball tournament going on too, so definitely some activity back in our communities. And the majority of the money we have people from Indiana to Ocala, Florida. Majority of the entries were from out of state, so every new dollar is worth $7. So really good way to stimulate the economy again.
Good to see, and I did, I saw a lot of people from out of town with horse trailers longer than this, this room right here.
So they live in it, in the port,
Oh, man, they,
camping, port trailers, port campers and port.
They're living quarters, a lot of them are.
nicer than a lot of people's homes,
Some of those retail vehicles, 200,000.
200,000 plus. So, anything else?
No, that's all.
All right. This is something that we're gonna have to tackle. I guess from the chair, it was in my box, about the smart, bus route, the paratransit service. And I guess, Rob, they're saying, basically, we can't pay for it. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. What we run into, and I actually looked into trying to find another route to go, and here's the problem, the city and the university, they've been given authority. With us, if you haven't explicitly been given the authority to do it, you can't do it. Well, we haven't been explicitly given authority to make a deal with the university to go out here and provide this bus service.
But we agreed to the service.
We agreed to it.
And it's on the minutes.
And it's on the minutes, I agree with
But
all
legally-
of that, but legally, I can't figure out a way to pay them. Now, they're, so that I'm very clear in this, we owe them this money. We told them that we were gonna go do this, we basically said that we were gonna jump through these hoops. I'll continue looking for a way for us to make them whole for this thing, but until I figure out a way to do that without us breaking our own audit rules, I have advised to not do it until, and they understand that. We've had conversations with them. They had sent me a note saying they were gonna send this letter, and I explained to them that we understood that, we completely agree with their position in this. This is not some situation where we're arguing about it. It's just I've got to figure out a way. If we're going to do this, and that's the intent of this board to do it, I've got to figure out a legal way to do it. And that's maybe a situation where we try to do a local private of some sort. Now, that being said, that's up to this board to determine whether or not you want to move toward that and find out whether or not that's something that you really want to do. But that being said, we may have to go that route. That may be the only option we have.
Sometimes a little bit more due diligence up front rather than agreeing with something.
Well, I should have caught this on the front end. I just didn't call it. We didn't catch it until 6 months in, and I have to be honest with you. If it hadn't been for Emily keeping me straight, I would have called it.
And I don't have anything else from the chair, just that, we do have another board meeting on the 5th of October at 9 AM, so unless anyone else has anything else to add, Ms. Emily, you good? Then let's stand adjourned until the 5th of October at 9 AM. Need a motion and a second to do so. Motion by Supervisor Howard, second by Supervisor Trainer. All those in favor say aye. Aye. So we'll see you gentlemen, ladies on the 5th.
You all have a great day.